Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel, and for so many likes. The first story. Guy I worked with was suspended from the project and lost his position. The second story. Woman wanted to get a male employee, but did not know that I was a store manager, and I know much more. The third story. Lady paid a lot more for her order because she didn't listen to me. On to the first story. Not allowed to use my initiative? Work is canceled then. This happened a few years back, but I got reminded of the guy involved again recently, and it all came flooding back. I had been given a new project at work, which was to install a new type of LED bulb in train signals in place of the old halogen ones. The guy I was doing the project with we will call P, short for P. This guy was universally hated. I had never heard of him before, but I asked what he was like, and the first words out of the mouths of anybody who had any dealings with him were, "He's a P," or other more C-based words. Honestly, I've never known somebody to not have one person like them at any level of the company. Also, he had no actual authority over me. It was his project, and I was the person actually performing and supervising the work. But anything I did under his say was so done with mere courtesy. If anything, I was actually a grade above him job-wise. However, my boss told me to play nice because I was new to the supervisor role. I got given a spreadsheet of all the signals that needed the bulbs changed and worked out the staff, the materials, and the best course of action to do the work. It was an SH job. You had to change brackets, lamp holders, wiring, and nuts and bolts with tools that weren't fit for purpose, usually in the wind or rain, and up a 20-foot ladder around live electrical equipment. You could isolate some circuits, but usually not all of them in a signal head. Also, I was consistently the last person at work, including my boss's bosses, dealing with all this crap for no extra thanks, and no chance of extra pay either. Salaried worker. After doing the job for a while, I got an email from P saying he had planned which signals to change for each shift from now on, and I was not allowed to stray from the plan. The plan was effing dumb. Instead of doing signals in a straight line, it was 2 in this area, 2 at this area 5 miles away, 3 here, just terribly put together. I told him this was stupid as hell and we needed to do them all in a line. For maybe the first time in his life, he saw sense and relented. He then made a new plan with them all in a row, which he said I had to follow. What he failed to realize, because he was incompetent, was the railway has engineering works in specified areas, where other works cannot take place in them for safety reasons. The very next shift, what he has listed us to do cannot be done. We cannot access the area. If we did, we would very much get fired. So I looked at the spreadsheet, found an area we could work, and worked there. This infuriated P, and I was told via email to follow his plan to the letter, and to stop being so arrogant. Completing a night's work instead of literally doing nothing was arrogant? Okay, fine. Malicious compliance activated. The next couple of nights went okay, but then another specified area showed up we couldn't work in. This time, we just didn't do the work and I reported back as such, because we can't deviate from the plan. This happened multiple times a week. Radio silence from P. At some points, P's bosses comes out with us to see our work, because she hasn't seen this type of work before, and we get along great, honestly. This was planned in advance. She wasn't keeping an eye on us because we had started to underperform. We get about half the work done and then start packing up to leave. She asks why. I tell her because the next signals are in an area for planned engineering works and we can't go in there. She's okay with that. As I said, if we went in there, we would probably be out of a job, or we could be killed. Trains moving, high voltage equipment left on, etc. But she then asks why we can't go to another location and work there. I show her the plan and tell her how we're supposed to adhere to it at all costs. She asks why, and I ask her if she's seen P's email. She had not, but said she would chase it up during the day. I get a very prickly email from P during the day, asking why I only completed half the work, and he had even checked to see what time I had been on track till to tell me I still had 2 hours I could have worked. He CC'd his boss and my boss into the email. He thought he had me because he was correct. There was 2 hours left before we had to get off track in the section we completed the work, but the canceled engineering hours in the area for all the other assets made the rest of the work impossible. I was slightly taken aback by this though, because while there is a way to check what time people get off track, nobody ever uses it because it's such an underhanded thing to do, and creates massive distrust with everybody. He's the only person in nearly 20 years at this company I've known to have done it. His manager then called us all into a meeting. Before anybody else could speak, she told P the reason half the work was done was because the equipment was further along. On his plan was in a specified area, we're not permitted to work in regardless of what his stupid hindrance of a plan says. She said he should have looked at what areas we could work at before a shift, instead of spending that time spying on the staff for what time they got off track. Her numbers had me working at 40% above what was expected for the shift when I was in charge, and less than half of what I should be doing when he was making us follow his plan. P tries to talk back, but she says, and I quote, "Shut your stupid mouth before you say anything else useless." I love this woman. I then get sent out while she talks to P and my boss in private. The fallout was the project getting taken off by P, him being moved on from that role to never have a position with any kind of authority again. She gave my staff, and I, a much better project to work on with more overtime, voluntary, a better person to liaise with, and the mental image of P looking like a scolded puppy. Justice prevailed and our OP came out the winner. It's a wonderful story. I'm really glad that P's boss is such a wise woman, but I can't understand why P himself is so stupid. He wanted to play with you and show his power, but ended up without a project and lost his position. P still sounds like a P with the way he talks to other people, not being flexible, the whole email thing, and just a total lack of common sense. One of the dumbest things anyone can say is, follow the plan, no matter what, otherwise. It just shows that they don't understand how things work. This was also true of P. He didn't know how it worked, but he wanted to show everyone that he was in charge. Oh, he got what he deserved. I'm glad you got a better project and also a lot of overtime. Now you won't have to work with incompetent P and do his stupid tasks. The second story is, you want a man to help you? No problem. One will clock in soon. This happened 16 years ago. When I was about 20 years old, I was a department manager in a big box hardware store. People said I acted 25, but I didn't even look 18. As a young female, I saw my fair amount of sexual discrimination, but the worst always came from women. This is the story of one such woman. I managed the paint department. I had 3 associates who worked for me. They loved me as a boss because I bought them a department radio, took the shifts they didn't want, worked Friday close and Saturday mid, so my 2 younger guys could have time to have fun on Friday nights and the older gentlemen took early Saturday mornings, so they could sleep off their fun. In trade, I gave the older gentleman his ideal schedule. My team was awesome. One day I was in the department alone, and a lady came up and asked me where she could find the 5-gallon oil-based primer. I let her know that my location didn't carry the 5-gallon size of that primer. She told me that we did, and said that it was shelved right there while suggesting I was too stupid to remember. Her husband gave me an apologetic look. I let her know that another location had what she was looking for, and that it was in fact that exact location in that store. She let me know how stupid she thought I was for thinking she could mix up stores. Then she began yelling and loudly insisting that I get a man out there to help her, because she wanted someone competent and not a stupid little girl. Her husband actually tried to step in at that point, but I just smiled and let her know that a male paint associate would be clocking in any minute, and that I would be happy to direct him to her as soon as he's on the clock. I smiled and waited for Joe to clock in. Joe was great, and I knew he could handle this or I wouldn't have put him in this situation, but Joe was also new. He was learning things super quick, but still relied on the rest of us for help. When I saw Joe walking up, I quickly said that there was a customer who needed help. I let him know that she was upset and asked him to do his best to answer her questions. Joe walked up to the lady. She said, "Finally a man." She asked her question, explained where the product should be, and waited. Joe calmly let her know that he had never seen us carry 5-gallon size of oil-based primer, but said he could check with the paint department manager. She was happy and loudly said she was happy to be getting her some real help. Joe walked up to me and started to ask me about 5-gallon oil-based primers. The lady quickly walked up and asked him what he was doing. He turned and said, "This is my manager. She runs this department." The husband laughed out loud. The woman stormed off, and I bought Joe lunch. Haha, this woman definitely has a problem with other women. I hate it when people think that a man in a man's job does better and knows more than a woman. The same goes for women's work. Why pay attention to gender when you have a specialist standing in front of you who knows what he's doing? Women can do what men can do, so this Karen had no right to assume that a woman like you couldn't help her. God, I hate this kind of behavior the most from other women. Mole, lady, do you consider yourself an incompetent person? If not, don't think of me that way. If so, we're different people and you should respect that. If I need help at the hardware store, it's the female consultant I can turn to, because men usually start the conversation by saying, "Well, little lady, that's what you call a screwdriver." It turned out to be a funny submission, and I laughed for a very long time. Good luck to you and your cool team. The last story is, lady doesn't want to drink for her food, so has to pay for each item individually. I worked at a KFC for about 6 months as my first job, and this happened toward the end of my stay. One of our managers, who I'll dub Jay, is pretty strict with us in order to keep us with time and company policy. But we didn't mind, as he usually worked online with us, rather than sit in the office all day, and he does not have patience for rude people. And on one typical military payday Friday, in towns next to military bases, all soldiers come in force on payday. We were slammed, and he was working register, when a lady orders one of our 12-piece buckets, biscuits and all. Now usually you can save some money by ordering them as a meal. Gives you drinks as well. So as usual, he asks what drink she wants, intending to make it a meal automatically. She declines the drinks. He tries to explain, "Ma'am, if we make it a meal, you'll," and she cuts him off with, "I don't care, I don't need drinks." As I said before, he hates rude people, so he immediately shuts up, smiles to me, says, "OP, can I get a 12-piece family fill-up, and don't worry about the drinks," before turning to her and finishing the order, which took a moment as we couldn't simply press the combo button anymore. Rather, we had to ring up all items themselves. He then had to ring up every single item individually, which racks up the price given the amount of items, and then finishes the order, which was well above what the normal price would be. It initially went off without a hitch, but unfortunately for us at the time, retelling a funny story later wasn't really a thought at the time. Rather, we just wanted to keep the line moving. The family behind her ordered another 12-piece family fill-up, but they ordered the combo. As Jay was finishing up the second family order, the first one stepped aside to check the bags for everything. Then they hear the price. Jay rang the second family for almost half the price of theirs, and she storms over. "How come theirs is so cheap? We ordered the same thing," she asks. To which Jay replies, wearing the standard issue customer service smile, "You said you didn't want no combo, ma'am, so I rang them up individually, ma'am, so you paid for them not as a combo, but as the order you insisted on me making, ma'am." She then asked for the manager, claiming we were scamming her, to which Jay responds by walking behind the wall and coming back 2 seconds later wearing his manager vest. And Jay says, "Hello, I heard we had a problem and I came to see what I can help with." She grabs her food and leaves. This story proves once again that you don't have to be a Karen, and sometimes listen to the restaurant staff. She got what she wanted, and it was all her fault that she paid so much more. Most likely next time she won't ignore the advice of the staff. I worked in a fast food place, but we had different rules. People would ask to eat without booze, thinking it would be cheaper. I tried to convince them that it was cheaper to order a sandwich and fries separately, but they insisted and ended up paying more. They also didn't listen to me and ended up screwing up. If I go to a fast food place, I can tell them what I want, and they offer the cheapest way for me. I agreed to take that order as a combo, but I would refuse the drink. That'd be the end of the problem. Cool, thanks. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.